who's also a journalist. He would go in to do his newscast on Sundays. And that was a really hard day for me. Every week, never failed Sundays. He'd be like, Leslie, are you okay? He'd check in with me all the time. And it never failed. The panic attacks, fear, what's happening, what's tomorrow going to bring. And even on the way, Monday morning, because morning anchor schedule, but Monday morning driving in early, feeling this massive pit in my stomach. And I was just like, I cannot continue to live this way. This is just so unhealthy. And when the contract negotiations began, I tried to delay it as much as I could. I tried to hype myself up. I was like, Leslie, maybe it's just you. And I almost hate that for me, because I was like, are you just being dramatic? Like, this is your dream job, Leslie. You went to school in Austin. You interned at this station. Your people love you. You love the community. Are you sure you want to leave? Like, I was trying to talk myself out of it times 100. And it got to the point where I was like, if I say yes to staying, like, I will in turn, like, a little piece of my soul will die. And I was just like, that's really drastic. And I think that's really a big sign that this is not it. This is not the path that you are meant to continue on. It was a beautiful path. You checked the mark, you did it. Look at you, you achieved the dream. And really listening, I think it was one of Andrea's podcasts that she did, several of them, I will say, that y'all talked about chapters. Like, you close one chapter and that's great. It doesn't mean you're failing. It doesn't mean that you aren't doing the thing. It just means that was one chapter. You close it and you put it on the shelf, and guess what? You get to literally rewrite a different story, write a new chapter. So that was the biggest thing for me, is really noticing my physical health and how it was impacting me. The funny part is, I will add quickly, the amount of people now that I'll see friends at the gym or at dance class or even at conferences, and they say, Leslie, you are such a joyful person, and like, you just have this glow about you. They said, but I did not realize that glow could get even bigger. And I was just like, what are you talking about? They're like, just the joy you have now is so undeniable. And they were like, we thought you were happy before, but now you're just like glowing. And someone told me that I went to the IRE conference in California, and someone came up to me and said, I didn't realize that the News Yogi was like an entire company with different presenters. And I was like, no, it's just me. I'm a solopreneur. And she wasn't trying to be ugly or anything. She was like, I was in the session last year, and she described, where we were for the session and everything. She's like, but I remember the person who spoke was wearing a beautiful purple outfit, but it was just this older woman. She just looked more subdued. And I was like, that's me. And I showed her a picture. and then, she felt a little embarrassed, but I was like, no. And it was such a testament to like, wow, what must I have really been going through for someone to think that I was a whole entire different person, a whole entire different age bracket. And now they're like, oh my gosh, you're so lively and spunky and cute. And I'm like, I finally feel like I can be me, like the actual me. So yes.
Ears to that too. And it definitely resonates. And like, I have another friend who, before she left, she was having those panic attacks too. It's like, those are signs, like, this is not healthy, and it's like, I think Andrea always says this. So, we're not used to thinking about ourselves in news and like paying attention to ourselves. And so, we just kind of dismiss those kind of occurrences, if you will, So you talked about this a little bit before we started. You're kind of like in that phase where you're starting to deprogram yourself from your like news years. Talk about that. What's been the biggest surprise of that? And what's been the hardest kind of part in that transition, if you will?
Yeah, for me, and I always say this with anyone who like will ask me about an experience, or they'll send me a message like, Leslie, you worked in such and such newsroom. What was it like? And so for me, when I think about that, is we all have different experiences, right? But I always say, like, my experience within the TV business, the TV news business, and not all my newsrooms were like this. And of course, just like everything, there were some really great people that I met in the TV news side of business, and people that obviously mean the world to me and are my mentors. But in general, as a whole, for me, being in TV news was so hard. I always felt that I had to look a certain way. I wasn't skinny and I wasn't blonde and I don't have blue eyes. That was something that was hard for me because I felt like I was always competing with this impossible standard that, things that I could not physically change about myself. Even though I tried to go blonde during my first TV job, that was a disaster. But things like that, like things like I can finally wear what I want to wear. um I can be a little bit more authentic in terms of the way I show up. One of the things that I also know in certain spaces in TV news is there's this level of, I don't know if it's insecurity from different folks, or a fear of people getting left behind, or whatever it might be. But I really felt that it was a lot of walking on eggshells. Like, what am I going to show up to work today and worry that someone thinks that, I said whatever, or someone's judging me based off of gossip. So there was a lot of that, like, walking on eggshells type of thing. And that's another thing where I'm not having to carry that stress. Like, I can, in my newsroom now, like, we all it's such a unique relationship that we have, and I love the people. And I've been there, actually it might be a month
Oh,
today. But
congrats.
so far we get along, and it's so relaxing, and it's really, for me, brought back the fun in journalism, and really the reason why I wanted to be a journalist. And I don't have to fight to prove why my story is important or why it's relevant. And I am seen as a value to the newsroom, to the journalism that we're doing, because of my lived experience, as opposed to trying to talk people into understanding why I'm a value and why my stories and why my voice is needed in a newsroom. And when I tell you, like, the weight that gets lifted off of me from those little, we'll just call them what they are, microaggressions, macroaggressions, those little side comments, like, the way that that's been lifted off of me is so relaxing. Like, it's wonderful, and it's something that I don't take for granted, because I know that that is something that is very hard in newsrooms, whether you're in TV or not. And it's a big reason, I believe, why journalists of color are so, we're so few in the industry. And at some point, we're not martyrs. We got to take care of ourselves. And so, obviously, I also don't blame journalists for saying, this ain't it.
But the thing too, that's what I love. I love so many parts of your story. One is for the community to see when somebody who's just launched their rewrite, and then also with the idea, there are other people who provide, like, who help journalists transition, but a lot of the rhetoric around it is like, just leave, and it's not taken into account the love and the passion for journalism. And so when we wrote you in June, you were like, but I'm not ready to, like, turn my back on this thing just yet. Like, we
Yes.
got to figure out how to make it work, kind of, but you weren't ready, and you didn't. So how did you get this job, and how did you ensure, what did you kind of, like, optimize for, to make sure you just didn't have another, like, a duplicate experience just in another place?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fun question. So, like I said earlier, my initial plan was I'm going to take 6 months off, launch a podcast, and we'll see what happens. And then in June, my now editor in chief, she hopped into my DMs and was like, "Hey, I saw you left TV. What are you up to?" and eventually this, we talked. She was familiar with my work in journalism, with both the news yogi and my journalism work that I'd been doing. And yeah, we kept talking. We really clicked. I believed in the mission of what the Barbed Wire is and what it was planning on being, which was also scary because it's a startup newsroom, and we are the ones who are doing everything. We're a very small staff right now, and we are really carrying the load on many things. But in the way I should have listened to my gut earlier, I was like, I'm going to listen to my gut now. And there was something in there that was like, I think you just need to do this, Leslie. And so I did it. But, to answer your question on how did I actually, get this job, whether it was this job or any other job that would have come up, for me, along the way in journalism, I've never been satisfied. And there are caveats to this. I'm the eldest daughter. I'm daughter of immigrants. I'm high achieving, all of the things. And so it's very hard for me to come to places and just be satisfied with, okay, here I am, and I'm just going to coast and enjoy things. I just don't have that in me. Even my shirt, échale ganas, that basically means like, give it your all. It's a saying that my parents have always said in Spanish, and my aunts and uncles. But all that to say, along the way, I was always looking for the next workshop, the next training that I could do, the next fellowship. I, would apply to fellowships and I'd get denied. I'd apply to some scholarship to go to another conference and I would get denied. But for every denial, there was like, okay, well, I didn't get it this time, but I got it this other time. That's what happened with, I was an investigative reporters and editors fellow it's the Chauncey Bailey Journalists of Color Fellowship. So that was in 2023. And I was super excited and surprised and honored to receive that fellowship and to get to go through that training program, because I was one of 4 journalists selected in the entire world. My cohort members were a journalist who works in South Africa, and then another journalist who works in Oregon. And so it was the 3 of us, and making those little connections through IRE and really finding your people, finding your mentors. And I know I keep talking about IRE, but IRE for me really was and is and has been such a wonderful, beautiful organization, because they're just great. They're just great. And not IRE only as well. It's been SPJ and my mentors with SPJ. Rebecca Aguilar, she's another great mentor that has helped me and really has taught me to not, if there's something that you want, like, keep that as your goal and continue going. And for me, I've always wanted to do something more investigative. And that was another thing that was at the crux of my big rewrite. Was I was kind of getting tired of, just smiling to people every morning and saying good morning and then talking about the best margarita, in Austin. That's fun and everything. And I'm glad that there are journalists who want to do that, because we also need that kind of journalism, right? But where I am in life and my lived experience, I was starting to see a world around me that really needed good journalism. And that's where this passion to keep going was really rooted in the fact that I couldn't just stand by and do nothing. And no, I can't change the world. And, activism and PR for me right now, who knows later, but right now it's not a thing. It's not my thing. And so why not use the tools that I have in my toolbox now to maybe help inspire others to really change the world? And for me, that's been journalism. So.
Yeah, there's no shortage of news there in Texas, that's for sure.
Yes.
I'd love to unpack the mental health component a little bit more. And like earlier when you talked about your father passing away, that really resonated with me because I kind of went into a dark space after my dad died 2 years ago, because I had so many regrets from how many years I'd spent away on I never went home for holidays and stuff like that. And so I say that to say, like, there's so many layers when it comes to your mental health as a journalist. What do you think is the biggest misconception that journalists have about their mental health?
That's a good one. I think the biggest misconception that journalists have about mental health is that it has to be this really big, complicated thing that is just lofty, right? Like I think when we think about mental health and journalism, and I wondered this too, but I think there's often like, that doesn't exist. Like, what sustainability in news? What a joke.
Yeah.
And yeah, it because it's big and it's lofty and it's like, how do you do that? But what I teach is like, let's break down the little things, right? If we're on our computers all day, can you set a timer? Like, just start small. Like, set a timer every 2 hours for literally just 2 minutes. 2 minutes to get up, take a little walk. If you're work from home, that's a whole new life I'm navigating. But set a timer to get up, to go and give your dogs a belly rub, or to pet your cat. Let her purr. Go to the refrigerator, grab some strawberries, and just be in that moment. Like, see the strawberry, it's red, and you might feel that it's a little chill, and you take a bite, and you taste the strawberry, and it's just this really delicious, beautiful fruit, and you have a moment of gratitude, like, wow, I can open this refrigerator and grab the snack that I want. And all of those things, what that is doing is that's activating the part of your nervous system that is in charge of rest, relaxation, and digestion. And what that does is, even just for 2 minutes, it takes us out of this survival mode where it's like, we got a deadline, and then did you see this tweet, and then Paxton tweeted this, and then Ted Cruz tweeted that, and then all these things are happening, and that is the nature of our jobs as journalists. But also it's important to offload our nervous system. And so again, I think this common misconception is that it's this big lofty thing, and you might have to take medical leave for a really long time, and you have to visit therapists, and then the whole thing. And yes, that is definitely true. And, those are part of different journalist stories, but also start off with just taking a little break, or paying attention to maybe that neck pain that you've been feeling for a long time. Is it because it's your bones and muscles, or is it because every time you're tensed, you're feeling the tension here, and then you're realizing, wait, am I always stressed? And then you realize, I've spent the last 10 years of my career ignoring this pain in my neck, and it's been stress all along. So yeah, I would say that's the biggest misconception.
Yeah, those are great points. I really want to talk about your entrepreneurial spirit, because what we try to reinforce here is that your rewrite is never done in isolation, which you have talked about how you got into community, and it's also not just done sitting still. Like, it doesn't come to you. There's an active movement that you have to have. You have to have initiative. You have to take action. And it's not taking action afterwards. You were doing things beforehand with the News Yogi and co-authoring the book. How were you able to do that? Did you have to negotiate that in your contract? First of all, being on air, doing that, and talk about the process of doing that while also being on air.
Yeah. So it varies between different companies, different managers. The managers that I first came to at my TV station with this idea and with this project, they were really supportive of it. But, they also were cautious, like, that's that. And when you're here, you're this. And so it was very separate. And so again, my advice, if someone is interested in growing a brand or doing some sort of side entrepreneurship, I would just be transparent with your managers. And, that was something that I was very grateful that, to a certain extent, I definitely did have the support to really just let me do what I wanted in terms of that aspect of it. In terms of community, yes, I think it could get so tricky because there are, how do I want to say this? Like, sometimes you have to put your oxygen mask on first, right? Before you can do anything. And so with that, I would say, first of all, if you're in a place, in a space where you feel that your mental health is not in a great place, I would address that first. At least start to have some awareness there and talk through that first with your medical practitioner or with a trusted loved one, whoever that you would go to in regards to mental health concerns. And then from there, then start adding, the little things here and there. I actually, he'll know who he is, but I have a friend of mine that is still in TV, and we've been messaging, and he's like, I've been looking through some of these job descriptions, and I really don't think I have what they're looking for. And I'm like, friend, like you are this huge award-winning journalist, and I guarantee you they would be so lucky to have you. And I actually sent them the PDF, the rewrite PDF that switches all the language. You know what the name of that is.
The transferable skills guide.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I sent over the transferable skills. I was like, friend, like, you just need to sit down and do this. He's like, yeah, my wife told me I needed to do something like this. And I was like, well, here you go. Here's the PDF. And I actually have not checked on his status on it, but I think a lot of times we can also get in our heads too, like imposter syndrome, kind of touching on what you said, Andrea. Like we're so, journalists have just this heart of wanting to serve others. Most journalists, I would think. And in that we forget about ourselves. And so one of the biggest questions that I get sometimes when I'm teaching workshops on overcoming imposter syndrome is, well, how do you do it? Like, how do you actually overcome imposter syndrome? And so I'll tell you one of the biggest tricks that I do, if anybody right now who is dealing with imposter syndrome or wondering, oh, well, I don't have any skills, I can't do anything else, or, I've always worked in TV, I've never worked in print, how am I going to do that? I would right now take out a pen and list 20 reasons, 20 accomplishments that prove that you are very well equipped to apply for whatever that job. And as a bonus, I would grab the PDF from the rewrite and look at the transferable skills. And then if you can't find 20 reasons why you would be excellent in whatever position you're looking for, then either come to me or come to Dawn or Andrea, because we'll help you. Like, it's just, that imposter syndrome is pesky, but we've got to push through it, and not really push through it, more like just break. Exactly.
It's ingrained in us in the news too, because it's like nothing you do is ever good enough, and so it's just like I find myself still trying to deprogram myself from that 6 years later, so yeah. I know we only have you for a few more minutes. I wanted to show your book too. Yes. Talk about it a little bit for us. And, I think definitely one of the silver linings from the pandemic is like we've normalized these kind of conversations around mental health. Talk a little bit about the book, and it's available on Amazon. I know Andrea put it in the chat.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, the book was it was really like a love note to journalists and journalism. We got to interview, it's a very easy read, first of all. If you flip through it, very easy, quick read. And we went through and we broke down first, what is mental health? That's one of the big things that we wanted to talk about, because again, talking about misconceptions on mental health, and also meeting this moment of mental health where it's at. Like, mental health is not just about like you get to take a day off and go to the lake and have a smoothie and a massage. Like, mental health, well, that is fun, but mental health is also directly related to our physical health. Like, stress increases cortisol in the body, which increases a lot of the stress hormones, which then is directly linked to high blood pressure. And I'm working on a story now about the statistics of high blood pressure in communities of color. And for me, I'm like, I don't need one more reason to check off another statistic. So really understanding what is mental health and why is it that it's so important, and why does it really, really impact your body, your livelihood, how long you can live. So that's a light chapter to start off with. But we also talked to other journalists who shared their stories. Cassandra Jaramillo, she works with ProPublica, and she's a journalist that was, we were very grateful that she shared her story with us. She was vulnerable. She talked about what her moment was, in terms of realizing, wait a minute, I need therapy. Something's wrong with the way I'm moving through life right now. And she shares her story in the book, after the horrible shooting that happened at the Walmart in El Paso. So her story is included. A little bit of my story is included. My co-author, Kate West, her story is included. Her, it was such a great perspective to have her story, because she's been in the industry for so long. And she talks about, back in my day, like, mental health was definitely not a thing. And, we talked to a variety of different people, and in the book too, we also give tangible tools, like, we've got some breath work in there. If you haven't connected with me or my work, or seen some of my work on Instagram and LinkedIn, there's actually journaling exercises that are in the book, and breath work. And we talk about the nervous system and what different parts of the central nervous system are, and really breaking down more what fight, flight, freeze is, and journaling through some things. And we also have my favorite chapter, which was my baby, really taking a look at how mental health, the conversation around mental health, specifically for people from marginalized communities. So not only journalists of color, but also journalists who are from the LGBTQIA plus community, and just some things to consider, both as members of marginalized communities, but also for our friends and allies to take a look and to read and realize, that there are different complex layers for all of us, and to just help people be more informed to understand each other's story. Because I another thing I always say is, like, if we can't turn the lens on ourselves and understand our stories, how are we able to then take the lens and flip it on other people that we're supposed to be telling stories, whether we're in a journalism capacity or in a PR capacity? It's all storytelling. Yeah. So we've got to understand our stories first before, we can tell others.
And it'll all catch up to you too. It reminds me of the book, The Body Keeps the Score, and like, for me, my anxiety and like where I started having like real mental health issues was when I left news, and yeah. When you're in that cycle of going tragedy to tragedy, it's like my brain was just like moving on. And then once it wasn't my life anymore, that's when I started having that PTSD and anxiety.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's going to catch up with you one way or another,
Yeah. That's an important book. Another one of my favorite books. I'm just looking at the shelf to make sure I'm going to get the name right, but it's called What Happened to You. And it's by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. And I like that book better because they did the original work, and we're all journalists. We can all Google. If you Google The Body Keeps the Score and some of a little bit of the controversy in terms of where that work was inspired from, there's some questions around that and who the original people are that work was taken from. But it's an important book, and it was one of the first books that helped me also dive into that journey. But What Happened to You by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah is a great read.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I'll check that out.
Yeah.
In the chat, nobody had questions.
There were a lot of yes, that's so true. That's so true.
So that's so true. One last thing, and then we'll go ahead and let you go, Leslie. Is
yes.
What do you know now that you didn't know in June when you left?
What do I know now that I didn't know in June when I left? That I should have been gone a lot earlier. And I think just to further explain that just a tiny bit, like, there is not going to be a perfect time. There's not going to be a perfect time. And yes, there were some moments when, my husband was like, you realize we're not going to have your paycheck and we have a mortgage, Leslie, right? And I'm like, yes, it'll be fine. And, we did take some precautions, and, we did set out a budget, like, okay, this is, if you don't get a job during this amount of time and we're not having any income, like, this is when I'm going to go apply to Target type of thing. So, we did do a plan in terms of that. And I realized that, we're all at different journeys in terms of our finances, which are challenging because we work in news. But also, what's worth more, right? Your life, your joy, your just satisfaction, your ability to just, for me, now I sit on my back porch and I can see the squirrels running around, and I see butterflies, and I'm writing, and I can take my dogs on a walk, and I can hang out with a friend on a Sunday because I'm not having a panic attack, and we can actually meet, and I can enjoy their company, and I'm not a zombie, walking around just so in my despair. So I would just say don't wait, don't wait, whether you're thinking about leaving the industry as a whole, or whether you're just looking for a different newsroom. I feel like I always say all these things, but, go to where you're celebrated, not to where you're just tolerated. And that in itself will do wonders for you.
Amen. Yeah, that's a perfect way to end.
Yeah. I know you've got to go, but thank you so much. We're going to hang on and chat with some folks a little bit longer, but thank you so much, Leslie. Thank you. We've been cheering for you. We're so proud of you. Congratulations.
Book again.
Yeah, there's your
book.
Yes,
thank you.
Your contact in the I'll put your contact in the chat.
Yes, my Instagram. I've been a little quiet on the News Yogi right now because casual. I've launched a newsroom in Texas.
Been busy.
But yes, it's been a little busy. But please connect with me either way on the News Yogi, or I am Leslie Rangel, LinkedIn, all the ways. I'm happy to always help any fellow journalist who needs a little bit of a pep talk or clarity, and also to introduce them to y'all. Y'all have been, I told y'all at the beginning, but y'all really y'all got me through that last 6 months. I was in a really, really hard place, and your work and your podcasts and everything was just like, Okay, it was like my little power boost. So thank you.
We're humble.
Glad.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank
Yeah.
All right.
thank you.
Thank
Let's see what we do
you.
as well. All right. Thank you so much,
Thanks.
Leslie.
Thank you, Leslie.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, that was so great. That was so great. We have to do more My Rewrite lives and
Yeah.
just people that we're following. We do the My Rewrites on Instagram. So if you're watching on Instagram, amazing. If you're not, follow us at the Rewrite course on Instagram. Also, if you're new here, there are different ways you can engage with us. You can get the transferable skills guide that Leslie spoke about. We'll put that in the chat for you. Don, do you have that handy?
Yeah.
And that's the easiest way to kind of come into our ecosystem. It will show you how to update your resume so you can be marketable to a broader audience. And then once you come in, we send Wednesday wisdom emails giving you kind of a pep talk. We send the rundown emails on Saturday giving you resources, tools, and jobs. And all of the jobs have been posted really within the last 5 days because some jobs closed pretty quickly after being posted. And then we have these events. We have this. We've just finished our first course. We'll have a lot more programming coming in the fall. But our summer renaissance is done. It's coming to an end. We did
Brat Fall.
10, oh my gosh, we did 4, 8, 9 weeks of programming.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, we had 9 weeks of, like 9 weeks we had programming starting from July 1st. So summer renaissance is over.
Yes.
I know we gotta come up with a cool name for fall, funky fall, something. I don't know. We'll come up with something for fall, but we're not done. But thank you so much for supporting us, opening the email, sharing it with friends. We can do this. All of us, we can do this. We're your co-pilots. So we're so happy to have you here.
And we got some exciting things coming up in the next few weeks as well. So we'll be in touch with those as well. So thank you again for tuning in tonight, and hope you guys have a great rest of your week for sure.
All right. Good night. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.